Hello dear viewers, this case took place at Ueno Station, located in the Taito district of Tokyo, Japan. Ueno Station is a hub for over 6 train lines, including JR and Shinkansen, making it a very convenient area for transportation. The economy here is also highly developed, attracting many people looking to build their careers. Our main character today is Takashima Ryotaro, 55 years old. He owns several restaurants in Ueno, Tokyo, and is a wealthy figure in the culinary industry. Takashima's wife Sachiko is 56 years old. The couple has 2 daughters. Their eldest, 28, lives with them in Japan, while their younger daughter, 20, lives in the United States. One day in April 2024, as usual, the Takashima couple was riding their bicycles to check on their restaurants in Ueno. However, during that time, they mysteriously disappeared. Clues suggest that they were seen getting into a black car. So, what happened to the Takashima couple? On Tuesday, April 16, 2024, at 6:50 a.m. in Nasumachi, Nasu District, 93 miles from Ueno, a forestry worker was preparing to start his day as usual. As he entered the forest, he suddenly smelled something burning. Fearing there might be a fire, he became alert and started searching the area. After looking around, the worker saw smoke rising from a small stream in the distance. He quickly ran over to check the situation. As he got closer, he was utterly shocked by what he saw. He found 2 figures resembling mannequins burning, crossed in an X shape. Since the bodies were completely charred, it was impossible to tell if they were real people or mannequins. In a panic, he took out his phone and called the police. Once they received the report, the police quickly arrived at the scene. The forest was cordoned off, and the investigation began. A few reporters also arrived after hearing about the incident, drawing significant public attention due to the dangerous nature of the situation. Upon further examination, 2 human bodies were found at the scene, crossed in an X formation. Their hands and feet were bound with ropes, and their heads were covered in yellow plastic bags, which were wrapped with several layers of duct tape. The flames on the bodies hadn't fully extinguished yet. The scene was bizarre. Nearby, police found drag marks in the grass and an unused gas can. The evidence suggested that the forest was not the original crime scene. Initially, the police speculated that the perpetrators suffocated the 2 victims by covering their noses and mouths with plastic bags, then moved their bodies to this location to dispose of them. Based on the degree of burning, it was likely that the killer hadn't left the scene long before the bodies were discovered. The forestry workers stated that this area is quite remote, and people only come to the mountains in the spring to gather wild vegetables or cut wood. Normally, no one is around except him when he patrols. Due to the severe charring of the victims' bodies, it was impossible to determine their ages by sight alone. After removing the duct tape from their heads, the police discovered that the victims had been brutally attacked, with their faces completely disfigured. Forensic testing through DNA confirmed the identities of the 2 victims as a married Japanese-Chinese couple, Takashima Ryotaro, 55 years old, and Sachiko, 56 years old. Both had multiple skull fractures from blunt force trauma. The cause of death was determined to be suffocation due to pressure on the neck. Their time of death was estimated to be around 4 a.m. on April 16, 2024. It was discovered that the Takashima couple lived in Ueno, Tokyo. They owned over a dozen well-known restaurants in the area. Takashima had emigrated from China to Tokyo many years ago, and perhaps to integrate better into Japanese society, he adopted the Japanese name Takashima Ryotaro. In his early years he worked various jobs. He later met Sachiko, and the 2 fell in love and got married. Sachiko also hailed from China but spoke flawless Japanese, unlike her husband, who still had a noticeable regional accent when speaking. Their barbecue restaurant was quite unique, and the business thrived, attracting many customers. In 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic caused many businesses in Ueno to close due to financial struggles, Takashima saw an opportunity. He swiftly purchased over a dozen of these shuttered businesses, renovated them, and turned them into barbecue and sushi restaurants. Since all the restaurants were located on the same street, locals jokingly referred to it as Takashima Street. Despite their expanding business, the Takashima couple did not have a good reputation in the local restaurant industry. They frequently clashed with other restaurant owners in the area, and there were even several incidents where the police had to be called. This was the first lead, so the police visited the restaurants owned by the Takashima couple to investigate further. At one of the barbecue restaurants, they encountered the couple's eldest daughter. When she learned of her parents' deaths, she was devastated and pleaded with the police to uncover the truth so her parents could rest in peace. The eldest daughter shared that her parents were hard-working business people who, despite achieving financial freedom, remained focused on their work. Nearly every day, they would ride their bikes to each restaurant to check on things or experiment with new recipes. On the day of the murders, she wasn't at home due to other commitments, so she didn't know where her parents had gone. After this meeting, the police continued visiting the other restaurants owned by the Takashimas. Staff at one location mentioned seeing Takashima Ryotaro checking on things around 8 p.m. on April 15th, but they didn't know where he went afterward. Takashima was known to be very stern with his employees and rarely engaged in casual conversation, so no one asked much about his activities. The police investigation revealed that, to cut costs, most of the staff working in their restaurants were not Japanese. These workers were in Japan on temporary tourist visas. They were paid low wages and were highly compliant, a factor that Takashima Ryotaro took advantage of by hiring many foreign workers. He also had a habit of monitoring the surveillance cameras at all his restaurants through his phone. If he saw anyone idling, he would immediately call the restaurant to assign tasks. Some employees told the police that both the owner and his wife were very strict with the staff. They frequently visited the restaurants to inspect them, and if they noticed anyone slacking off, they would dock their pay. This strict management style led to a high employee turnover rate, with almost every month seeing workers quit due to the harsh conditions. However, this didn't significantly affect the operation of the restaurants, as they were able to quickly hire new employees. At this point, the police suspected that the Takashima couple's management style may have led to a grudge from one of their employees, which could have resulted in their tragic deaths. According to the investigation, 1 month before the incident, an employee, whom we will refer to as A, whose real name was not disclosed, was fired. The termination led to a heated argument between both parties. As he left, A threatened to take revenge on the heartless couple. The police tracked down this former employee to gather more information. A admitted that he truly disliked the Takashima couple, claiming they were never kind to their staff and constantly berated them. He couldn't stand it anymore, so he quit. However, on his last day, the couple announced they would deduct 3 days' worth of pay from him, which made him furious and led to an argument. In the heat of the moment, he made threats about getting revenge, but he insisted that it was just anger talking, and he never intended to act on it. Furthermore, after leaving, he quickly found another job through friends, so he had no time or reason to pursue revenge. A's friends corroborated his story and provided him with a solid alibi. Following this lead, the police then visited other nearby businesses. The general consensus was that the Takashima couple had unpleasant personalities. One ramen shop owner told the police that Sachiko, who was thin and always wore makeup, had a fiery temper. When she argued, her voice was so loud that everyone around could hear it. As for her husband, Takashima Ryotaro, he would sometimes curse at people in Chinese. Since others couldn't understand Chinese, they weren't sure what he was saying, but they were certain it wasn't anything nice. One of the most disliked behaviors of the Takashima couple was their habit of soliciting customers directly on the street. They would eagerly approach anyone passing by and bring them into their own restaurant. This behavior caused the revenue of surrounding businesses to drop, which made many people resent them. Some had even tried to negotiate with Takashima, asking him to stop. However, instead of listening, he insulted them, calling them incompetent and blaming others for their own failures. Another person accused the Takashima couple of being highly irresponsible. For instance, kitchen waste was supposed to be sealed in bags before being thrown into the trash. However, the Takashimas found this too bothersome, so they would simply toss the leftover food directly into the trash. This attracted a lot of roaches and rats. Since they owned multiple restaurants, the sanitation of the entire street deteriorated significantly. A barbecue restaurant owner mentioned that he frequently found rats in his establishment, which caused him a lot of stress. At times, customers even complained and reported that the restaurant's cleanliness didn't meet standards. To distance himself from the Takashima couple, the barbecue restaurant owner put up a wooden sign between his restaurant and theirs, asking them not to cross the boundary to solicit customers. However, this action infuriated the Takashimas, especially Sachiko. She would aggressively and irrationally knock the sign over, pretending it was an accident as she walked by. This behavior became unbearable for the surrounding businesses. The barbecue owner had arguments with her, which almost escalated into physical altercations. The situation grew so serious that the police had to intervene. Eventually, both parties took their grievances to court. However, even after all of this, the Takashima couple didn't change their ways. They continued instructing their staff to solicit customers on the street. Sometimes they even spread rumors about other restaurants, claiming their food was stale or leftovers from the previous night, in order to attract more customers to their own establishments. At this point, the police realized that the Takashima couple had developed deep animosity with the surrounding businesses. It was possible that someone had hired gang members to take revenge on them. The way the bodies were found, crossed in an X shape, closely resembled a gang-style execution. If the Takashimas were out of the picture, the surrounding businesses would benefit, as their revenue would likely increase. Following this lead, the police began secretly investigating whether any of the nearby business owners had connections with the underworld. Sure enough, they discovered that a sushi restaurant owner, referred to as B, had been in frequent contact with members of a gang. Owner B had paid the gang members to harass the Takashima couple's restaurant. Anytime someone from the Takashima restaurant tried to solicit customers, they were threatened. The police then approached Mr. B for questioning. Surprisingly, he openly admitted that he had hired gang members because he despised the Takashima couple and wanted to teach them a lesson. However, he insisted that he only intended to scare them and had no intention of causing them harm. Regarding the couple's demise, he claimed he had no knowledge of what happened. To prove his innocence, Mr. B voluntarily provided a list of phone numbers for the Yakuza members he had contacted. The police reached out to them and confirmed Mr. B's story. After further investigation, the suspicions against him were dismissed. The police then reviewed a large amount of surveillance footage from around the Takashima couple's restaurant and made a new discovery. On the evening of April 15th, the night before the crime, at around 9 p.m., Takashima Ryotaro was seen riding a bicycle on Amayoko Shopping Street in Ueno. Later, his wife was spotted on another bicycle, captured by the cameras. Around 11 p.m., the couple got into a black car and drove away. The surveillance footage showed that there were two other individuals in the car with them. They appeared to know each other and were chatting cheerfully. The cameras captured a clear image of the driver's face. Through facial recognition, the man was identified as Ryo Maeda, 36 years old, a senior manager at a real estate company. The police immediately went to question him. Ryo Maeda confirmed that he had indeed met with the Takashima couple on the night of April 15th. Since they had often sought him out for real estate transactions, they were quite familiar with each other. A week before the incident, Takashima Ryotaro had called him, expressing interest in purchasing a storefront property in the Hirakawa district of Tokyo. Due to being busy during the day, they scheduled a property viewing for the evening of April 15th. Accompanying them that night was another prospective buyer who was also interested in purchasing a property in the Hirakawa district, so they joined the Takashima couple for the viewing. Ryo Maeda told the police that for convenience, he rented a car. Once they arrived, everyone got out to view the property. Since it was a newly built area, many of the houses were vacant. The Takashima couple suggested walking around on their own, so the group split up. Ryo Maeda took the other client to view a different property. After a while, he tried calling the Takashima couple, but couldn't get through. He circled the area a few times, but couldn't find them. He didn't think much of it at the time, assuming the Takashimas had something come up and left early, so he and the other client drove away. Following this lead, the police went to the Hirakawa district and searched the property the Takashima couple had visited. They discovered a few drops of blood in the garage. DNA testing confirmed that it belonged to the Takashima couple. The police now believed that someone had been lying in wait inside the property, attacking the couple while they were distracted. Ryo Maeda became a prime suspect, but the police needed more evidence. At this point, a man named Hirayama Ayakin came to the police station to confess his involvement in the case. He stated, "My boss asked me to buy duct tape, rope, gasoline, and use my car." When the police asked about his connection to the Takashima couple, Hirayama Ayakin said he didn't know them and had never interacted with them before. He claimed he was simply following his boss's orders. On the night of April 15th around 10 p.m., he drove his black car to a parking lot next to a convenience store in the Asakusa district, where he handed over the supplies and car to two people on the street, then went home to sleep. Hirayama said he didn't know what happened afterward, and only realized the items he bought might have been connected to the crime when he saw the news about the Takashima couple's deaths on TV. Strangely, Hirayama Ayakin told the police that he didn't know much about the two people he had met. He only recalled drinking with them once under his boss's arrangement. They were very secretive and didn't reveal their identities. When asked about his boss's identity, Hirayama Ayakin refused to say, claiming that his boss was a dangerous figure and revealing his name would put him in serious trouble. The police then asked to see Ayakin's phone, but he replied, "My boss took my phone to prevent the police from finding any key evidence." Given these details, the police suspected that this case was linked to organized crime, and the boss, Hirayama mentioned, was likely a high-ranking member of a gang. Shortly after, the police located the black car in the city of Koshigaya, Saitama Prefecture, approximately 82 miles from Nasumachi. It was confirmed to be the same car that the Takashima couple had entered, as seen on the surveillance footage. Inside the trunk, the police found a blood-stained hammer, and there were also bloodstains on the back seat. DNA tests confirmed that the blood belonged to the Takashima couple. The police speculated that the house was the primary crime scene, and afterward, the bodies were moved to the stream where they were burned. To uncover the identity of the boss, the key remained with Hirayama Ayakin. According to their investigation, Ayakin had graduated from a technical college in Tokyo and previously worked as a painter. Since 2023, he had been employed at a construction site in Ibaraki Prefecture. The police interviewed Ayakin's co-workers to gather more information. Surprisingly, everyone described Hirayama Ayakin as a trustworthy person. He was known to be quiet, hard-working, and honest in his dealings. His colleagues said they had never heard him mention anyone like this boss. During the investigation, a netizen discovered a video filmed in 2023 in Ueno, Tokyo. The footage showed the Takashima couple having a heated argument with people from neighboring shops. Takashima Ryotaro was seen cursing in Chinese at the other party. The argument nearly escalated into a physical fight, with no resolution in sight. The police showed this video to Hirayama Ayakin and asked him if the person arguing with the Takashimas was the boss. However, Ayakin denied this, insisting that he would never reveal the identity of his boss, urging the police to drop their efforts. At this point, the police believed that Ayakin had turned himself in because he was fearful and easily overwhelmed by pressure. Following this theory, they applied more pressure on him, and eventually Ayakin cracked under the fear, revealing the identity of the boss. The boss was Sasaki Hikaru, a 28-year-old man born to a single-parent household in Fukuoka Prefecture. He had been raised solely by his mother and entered the workforce after completing middle school. He had worked as a server and an insurance salesman. However, the police found it puzzling that Sasaki Hikaru didn't seem to know the Takashima couple personally or have any clear motive to kill them. This led them to suspect that the case wasn't as simple as it appeared and that there might be someone else orchestrating events behind the scenes. Regarding Sasaki Hikaru, he was an ambitious person who was not content with mediocrity and wanted to achieve something big. However, lacking any particular talent, he gradually strayed into illegal activities. As a result, Sasaki spent some time in a correctional facility. Despite his own unfulfilled ambitions, many of his middle school classmates became successful. Perhaps seeing their success fueled his desire not to be left behind, but instead, he ended up falling into a life of crime. After obtaining Hirayama Ayakin's testimony, the police issued a nationwide warrant for Sasaki Hikaru. On April 29th, he was arrested at an airport in Naha, Okinawa Prefecture, as he was attempting to flee to his hometown of Fukuoka. When apprehended, the police searched him and found several smartphones, including the one he used to communicate with Ayakin. Based on his call history, the police identified two additional suspects, Wakayama Kurado, a 20-year-old Japanese actor, and Kang Kwang-ki, a 20-year-old South Korean national. This discovery shocked the police, as Wakayama Kurado had a bit of fame in Japan. He had shown acting talent from a young age, and had appeared in several TV dramas such as Mori Motonari and Laughing Fate, and was once represented by Watanabe Entertainment, one of Japan's top entertainment companies. However, as he grew older, he disappeared from the entertainment scene. No one expected that when he re-emerged in the public eye, it would be as a wanted criminal. Initially, the suspects remained silent during police interrogations, but eventually, Sasaki Hikaru broke down and confessed the truth. He revealed that someone had offered them 10 million yen, approximately $75,000, to kill the Takashima couple. At the time, Sasaki was in desperate need of money, so he accepted the offer. However, he knew he couldn't do it alone, so he gathered a few trusted friends and promised that everyone would get a share of the money once the job was done. They didn't know the Takashima couple personally, they were just hired to do the job for money. Sasaki Hikaru had met Hirayama Ayakin, Wakayama Kurado, and Kang Kwang-ki at a bar. Over time, they became close friends, frequently drinking together, and gave their group a grand nickname, the Four Heroic Drunks. Once they learned they would receive a substantial payment for killing the Takashima couple, they immediately agreed to carry out the crime together. After discussing their plan, they decided to lure the Takashima couple to a remote location and execute the murder. They chose an empty house in the Hirakawa district as the crime scene. Hirayama Ayakin purchased the hammer, duct tape, gasoline, and other tools for the crime. On the day of the murder, Wakayama Kurado and Kang Kwang-ki lay in wait inside the house. When the Takashima couple arrived, they ambushed them, striking the back of their heads with hammers. Since the couple was caught off guard, they were immediately knocked unconscious. Next, they used the prepared ropes to strangle both victims until they stopped breathing. Sasaki Hikaru and Hirayama Ayakin then tied up the bodies, stuffed them into the trunk of the car, and drove straight to the secluded forest in Nasumachi that night. By the side of a stream, they doused the bodies in gasoline and set them on fire. The group believed this would cover their tracks, but by the next morning the bodies had already been discovered. What shocked the police the most about this case was the involvement of Wakayama Kurado, a former child star. How had he ended up committing a brutal crime for money? When this information was made public, it caused a massive societal uproar. People couldn't believe that Wakayama Kurado had been involved in such a ruthless crime. During his interrogation, Kurado told the police that his current life was extremely difficult. The reason for his downfall, he explained, was that he was discovered by a talent scout at a young age and entered the entertainment industry. After that, he worked almost every day, leaving him with no time for school. By the time he entered high school, Kurado's mindset had changed. He began to think he was better than others and looked down on people. His fashion choices and hairstyle were flashy, designed to make him stand out. He only associated with good-looking people and had picked up the habits of smoking and drinking. He had no interest in studying at all. After graduating from high school, Kurado not only failed to get into college, but his acting career also took a severe hit. As he grew older, Wakasugi Kurado's appearance changed significantly, and he no longer had the cute look he had as a child. As a result, offers for acting roles became increasingly rare. Since Wakasugi Kurado had always dreamed of becoming a soccer player, he seized the opportunity to terminate his contract with Watanabe Entertainment to pursue his childhood dream of playing professional soccer. However, while his ambitions were high, reality was harsh. After leaving the entertainment industry, not only did he fail to become a professional soccer player, but even making a living became a significant challenge. It was during this time that he met Kang Kwang-ki, a South Korean man, at a bar. They quickly became close friends because of their similar backgrounds. Kang Kwan-ki grew up in a wealthy family and moved to Japan with his parents when he was young. His parents were frequently away on business and rarely spent time at home, but they always gave him a lot of money to spend. Because of this, Kang was seen as the rich kid among his peers. Spoiled by his parents, he had no concept of saving money and spent extravagantly. However, his life of luxury came to an abrupt end when his parents went bankrupt. Having been accustomed to a lavish lifestyle, Kang Kwan-ki struggled to adjust to his new reality. The sudden financial hardship changed his personality, leading to frequent conflicts with his parents. His former friends, who had once admired his wealth, gradually distanced themselves from him. After finishing high school, Kang Kwan-ki became unemployed and spent most of his time hanging out with delinquent youth on the streets. When he ran out of money, he would go to his parents for more, and if they refused, he would throw fits of anger. Eventually, his parents grew tired of his volatile behavior and in frustration kicked him out of the house. Without financial support, Kang Kwan-ki turned to petty theft. It was during this time that he met Wakayama Kurato, who then introduced him to Sasaki Hikaru and Hirayama Ayaken. Based on the clues they had gathered, the police concluded that the four heroic drunks committed the murder of the Takashima couple simply for the money. According to suspect Sasaki Hikaru's testimony, a mastermind offered them 10 million yen, approximately $75,000, to kill the Takashima couple. At the time, Sasaki kept 1 million yen for himself and handed the remaining 9 million yen to Hirayama Ayaken. When questioned again by the police, Ayaken stated that he kept 4 million yen and gave the remaining 5 million yen to Wakayama Kurato and Kang Kwan-ki, 2.5 million yen each. However, Wakayama Kurato and Kang Kwan-ki claimed that Ayaken only gave them 2 million yen each. Despite discrepancies in their stories, it was clear that the murder was committed for money. To uncover the identity of the mastermind, the police interrogated each of them. Except for Sasaki Hikaru, the other three insisted they did not know the real mastermind. They claimed they were only involved for the money and didn't ask questions. Sasaki Hikaru had direct contact with the mastermind, but remained tight-lipped, refusing to reveal the person's identity. During the investigation, a man named Harada Kengo came forward to the police with a crucial lead. Harada worked in the restaurant industry and was close to the Takashima couple, often eating, chatting, and discussing restaurant management with them. The Takashima couple lived with their 28-year-old eldest daughter, though she didn't seem particularly interested in running the family's restaurants. If she were to take over, there was doubt about whether she could maintain the business. However, her boyfriend, who was also the couple's future son-in-law, Sekine Saibon, had a talent for restaurant management. Sekine, 32 years old, had a domestic partnership with the Takashima's eldest daughter. In Japan, this term refers to a relationship where two people live together as husband and wife without formally registering their marriage. Sekine had a sharp business mind and took on the role of managing the Takashima family's restaurants. He was responsible for managing staff across the locations, purchasing supplies, and scouting new restaurant opportunities. Initially, his excellent work earned the Takashima couple's approval. Over time, however, Sekine Saibon began to show a desire for more control. Some staff even started referring to him as Boss Sekine, which displeased the Takashimas. To reassert their authority, they began putting pressure on Sekine, giving him more responsibilities. However, instead of faltering, he excelled in all his tasks. As a result, the Takashima couple started to make sarcastic remarks toward Sekine, belittling him both in public and behind his back. For example, they would say things like, "I am the real boss here. Know your place." Even though Sekine Saibon was their son-in-law, the Takashima couple was firm about not wanting him to have too much power. Harada Kengo, a close friend of the Takashima couple, told the police that 2 days before the murder, during a meal with the couple, they revealed their intention to demote Sekine Saibon from his managerial position. He never expected that shortly after, they would meet their tragic end. Initially, Harada thought it might have been an act of revenge from a business competitor. But as the police investigation progressed and more suspects were arrested, he began to feel that the situation was more complicated. Though the Takashima couple was busy during the day, they weren't so overwhelmed that they couldn't find time to view properties. The idea that they would go to Hirakawa to view a house late at night seemed highly suspicious, unless they were introduced by someone familiar or accompanied by someone they trusted. Coincidentally, Sakine Saiban was the one responsible for scouting new restaurant locations. Therefore, Sakine had a strong motive to commit the crime. Initially, Harada didn't want to act on his suspicions, fearing that his assumptions might unjustly accuse someone. But surprisingly, 8 days after the murder, someone approached him, offering to sell all of the Takashima couple's restaurants at a low price. This person said that if Harada was interested, he needed to act quickly and ideally make the payment within a week. Harada found this very odd. As a close friend of the Takashima family, he knew their situation well and had never heard anything about them wanting to sell their businesses. Moreover, the person who approached him was a complete stranger. Harada had never seen him before. Harada suspected that this might be the work of Sakine Saiban, the Takashima couple's son-in-law. Since Sakine had taken over the management of all the restaurants after their deaths, it was possible that the person who approached Harada was sent by Sakine. This raised Harada's suspicions even more. He directly expressed his concerns to the police, stating that he believed Sakine Saiban was the mastermind behind the murder of the Takashima couple. Fearing exposure, Sakine may have been trying to quickly sell off the restaurants, convert them to cash, and disappear. Although the police now had a crucial lead, they chose not to act hastily in order to avoid alerting the suspect. Instead, they continued gathering more evidence by interviewing those close to Sakine. A close friend of Sakine Saiban revealed that the Takashima couple owned a total of 14 restaurants, 5 of which were designed and built by Sakine Saiban himself. The revenue from these 5 restaurants was higher than that of the others. However, the Takashima couple did not acknowledge Sakine Saiban's contribution. They greedily pocketed all the earnings, which greatly frustrated Sakine. He often complained about his in-laws to his friends, stating that their mindset was very conservative. He mentioned that they didn't consider him a real family member because he and their daughter were not officially married, despite his wife repeatedly trying to convince them otherwise. Friends also told the police. Sakine Saiban once said, "If only the Takashima couple would disappear from the world, I could take over all the restaurants." He further mentioned that the Takashimas had serious issues with their business approach and often clashed with colleagues, berating them in a way that reflected poorly on their character. Sakine always hoped they would retire soon. Finally, in May 2024, the police arrested Sakine Saiban on charges of murder. During questioning, he quickly cracked under pressure and confessed to the crime. Sakine admitted that he had long resented the Takashima couple and wanted to eliminate them so he could take control of the restaurants himself. He devised a plan to lure them to a property in Hirakawa on the night of April 15th, under the guise of scouting a new restaurant location. Beforehand, he had bribed Sasaki Hikaru and enlisted the help of his close friend Ryo Maeda to convince the Takashimas to go. Since Ryo Maeda had handled previous restaurant purchases, the Takashima couple trusted him completely. Once everything was set, they tricked the couple into entering the empty house in Hirakawa, where they carried out the murders. To destroy the evidence, they transported the bodies to Nasumachi and burned them. After Sakine Saiban's confession, the police also arrested Ryo Maeda. As of the latest reports, the investigation into the case is ongoing, and many details have yet to be revealed. The case is far from closed, and we can expect further developments. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. Dear viewers, greed and selfishness can drive people to do unthinkable things. The Takashima couple always distrusted and treated their son-in-law harshly, while the son-in-law plotted to kill his in-laws to seize power and their wealth. This makes me understand the saying, "You reap what you sow." So why not treat each other with kindness so that in the future we can receive kindness in return? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. Goodbye.